Malaysia is a federation, and so we are more appropriately known as the Federation of Malaysia. The federation comprises primarily two territories known generally as West Malaysia or Peninsular Malaysia, and East Malaysia, or two territories of Borneo that are respectively known as Sabah and Sarawak. West and East Malaysia are divided geographically by the South China Sea. Malaysia was colonized on several occasions throughout history. The last and longest of these was by the British. This colonization, however, was not uniform and trickled into Malaysia directly and indirectly through various means. West Malaysia was primarily governed and influenced by the British East India Company, again, either through direct or indirect means. Two Malayan territories, namely Malacca and Penang, were British colonies, and as such, they were British territories. As for the rest of the main territories or states in Malaya, they were ruled and still remain ruled in principle by the respective sultanates. In total, there are 9 sultanates. During British influence, the respective sultans of these 9 territories were heavily advised by British residents. In 1948, after World War II and a brief displacement of British rule by a brief Japanese occupation, an attempt was made by the returning British colonialists to federalize West Malaysia, culminating in the formation of the Malayan Union. With the emergence of independence movements throughout the world in the aftermath of World War II, with nations primarily like India and Pakistan, the formation of the Malayan Union was heavily opposed by locals, and the British influence was beginning to see its end. By 1957, specifically on 31st August 1957, West Malaysia, or Malaya as it was then known, successfully declared independence from the British. There was no violent bloodshed or revolution. What happened was that political elites from the Malay and other multicultural parties, together with the sultans of the 9 states and the British rulers in the years between 1948 and 1957, successfully negotiated a written constitution for Malaysia premised on a social contract. That there was a social contract is a fact of history, and it is prevalent in our federal constitution. As for its existence, there are social and political reasons. As a result of nearly 168 years of British influence, Malaya had seen an influx of immigrants from China and India and other surrounding Asian territories, many of whom today are proud Malaysians. But at the time, there was a fundamental shift in the local population's demographics, political and economic imbalance between the Malay population and the immigrants, and the fact that we had 9 entirely separate systems of governance in the 9 different sultanates. In order to reconcile these fundamental differences, the government of the United Kingdom and local leaders agreed to form a multinational commission to develop a written constitution for Malaya. This commission is popularly known as the Reid Commission. I will refer to you their terms of reference, and I quote, "The members of the commission were appointed in the name of Her Majesty, the Queen, and their Highnesses, the rulers, with terms of reference as follows. To examine the present constitutional arrangements throughout the Federation of Malaya, taking into account the positions and dignities of Her Majesty, the Queen, and of their Highnesses, the rulers, and to make recommendations for a federal form of constitution for the whole country as a single self-governing unit within the Commonwealth, based on parliamentary democracy with a bicameral legislature, which would include provision for the establishment of a strong central government with the states and settlements enjoying a measure of autonomy, the question of the residual legislative power to be examined by and to be the subject of recommendations by the Commission, and with machinery for consultation between the central government and the states and settlements on certain financial matters to be specified in the Constitution, the safeguarding of the position and prestige of their Highnesses as constitutional rulers of their respective states, a constitutional Yang di-Pertuan Besar or head of state for the Federation to be chosen from among their Highnesses, the rulers, a common nationality for the whole of the Federation, the safeguarding of the special position of the Malays, and the legitimate interests of other communities." End quote. I must highlight again that unlike the constitutions of, say, India or Pakistan that were drafted by their own elected representatives at the time, the Malaysian constitution was developed by an unelected commission which comprised directly or indirectly the 9 sultans, local political elites who did the initial work and later consulted the public through open sessions.